Hey everybody, BMS here. Yep, you guessed it, more Castlevania 3. This time we're going to tackle the last of what is technically part of Alucard's Stage 5, and then head on through and finish his alternate 6th stage, the Sunken City. Now, as far as this extremely short wrap-up to Stage 5, I mean, it's just more of the same that we saw earlier in this level. Just remember my advice about getting away from those mummies that spawn as quickly as possible, and you should be good to go. I mean, there's really nothing all that interesting to say about this part of the level, so tell you what, I'll join y'all in a few seconds when we're ready to tackle Stage 6. Okay, here we go with another branching path. Essentially, the top path is a hell of a lot shorter, but is... well, actually, I find it slightly easier as well, due to the boss of the stage that we're in now, which I believe is called the Sunken City, by the way. Also one of my favorite bits of music from this game, Aquarius, which is definitely quite catchy. As if it hasn't already with the last stage, this is where the game decides to really ramp up the difficulty. That, and the fact that it pits us against the most luck-based boss in the entire game. It kind of makes things interesting here. Keep in mind that in this area, that the Belmonts can't really swim worth a fuck, so that equates to water still being very bad for your health. Which, the water in this level is going to play a much larger part in the stage later on, and it really adds an entirely new bullshit factor to this level. Here we go, another new enemy type. And this is also the only stage that these bone dragons are featured on. The only place you can actually do any damage to these guys is by hitting their head. One of the best places to use a stopwatch, actually. I mean, it works on these guys, surprisingly. I'm not really sure why they never use these guys outside of this level. Come to think of it, aside from Castlevania 1, I mean, these guys are a staple enemy. You know, don't get me wrong, I mean, it's not like I'm complaining, though. Now, this area can be pretty tricky here just because of the sheer number of bats and mermen that you have to deal with, but, I mean, as long as you don't get in too big of a hurry, you should be fine. Get up here by the door and we're greeted with another bone dragon. Little bastards have a shit ton of health, by the way. 11 hits with the full-powered whip. In fact, I think that makes them the toughest normal enemy in the game. A little trick for that second dragon: if you time it right, you can make it to the door underneath him, which, you know, means you can avoid having to fight him altogether. The only problem with this is that if you time it wrong, you're gonna get hit, and odds are you're gonna fall into the water. So really, in all actuality, it's best just to take your time and deal with the guy. Wow, and at this point the game seems to really just be spamming these guys at us. The only tricky one in that little gauntlet is the third dragon you come across, as you have to jump down in a vulnerable spot to hit him. And if he tags you, there's a chance he can knock you off the edge of the platform. But anyway, we've moved on to a newish area, nice golden columns in the background, and our last bone dragon in the game to deal with. You won't really be missed. The one good thing about these guys is that each bone counts as a separate enemy, which means they drop a lot of stuff when you kill them. Oh, and look, it's boss time. The Bone Dragon King. Fuck this guy. Seriously. He moves around the room, homing in on you. You couple that with the tiny platforms that he can knock you off of. Stand on the far left one. He can't knock you into a pit from that one, by the by. But that and the fact that each hit knocks a segment off of his body and makes him move faster, plus, like all bone dragons, only his head is vulnerable. The guy's a royal dick to deal with. And the best part is, once you get his health a little less than halfway, he punches a hole in the ceiling and starts to flood the city. Oh, joy. Oh yes, the city's flooding. By all means, don't fucking run, just stand there. Yeah, that's it. That's the spirit. Let the water get nice and high. Now, am I the only one here that this makes picture Trevor as some mentally retarded kid mesmerized by the water? I mean, even though he can't swim worth a damn. Huh, pretty water. Anyway, meet the most annoyingly difficult part in the game. First off, if you die here anywhere between now and the boss, you start back at the beginning of this little water segment for one. Second, the water rises pretty damn fast, and you can't afford to let it get too high, which we'll find out why in just a bit. Plus, the enemies spawning here can be real dicks. You know, you couple that with water and tiny platforms, it's basically a Belmont's worst nightmare. This is the screen where you really can't afford to lose any time at all. In case you hadn't guessed it, the water's going to play a part in the boss fight, which if you don't make it there in near perfect time, you're fucked. And, I mean, that's considering you fight him near perfectly as well. Anyway, make it to the end and the Bone King pops out. Same pattern as before, except he's faster and the water starts rising a little faster too, I think. Need to kill him quickly here, even if you have to tank hits like me. I can't count the number of times I've finished off this fucker, only to have the little orb thingy drop in the water. Not cool. And of course had to start all the way back at the beginning of this little segment. Major bummer. Anyway, if God deems you lucky enough, you'll beat this fellow before you run out of lives. Anywho, that's it for this little adventure. I hope you enjoyed, and will join me next time for Sypha's Stage 5. Stay tuned.